My name is Sarah, and I'm 29 years old. What I'm about to share with you happened 6 months ago, and it completely changed the trajectory of my life. It's a story about family expectations, personal dreams, and what happens when someone tries to force you into a box that was never meant for you. Before I dive into what happened, let me know in the comments if you've ever had someone try to control your life choices, and don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy stories about standing up for yourself. I've been married to my husband, Jake, for 3 years now. We met in college where we were both studying engineering. I was pursuing electrical engineering while he was in mechanical. We bonded over late-night study sessions, shared dreams of innovative technology, and a mutual love for solving complex problems. Jake was different from other guys I'd dated. He was supportive of my ambitions, encouraged me when I doubted myself during difficult courses, and never once suggested that my career aspirations were too ambitious for a woman. After graduation, we both landed great jobs at tech companies in Seattle. I was hired as a junior electrical engineer at a cutting-edge renewable energy startup, while Jake joined an aerospace company as a design engineer. We were both thriving professionally, splitting household responsibilities equally, and building what I thought was a modern, egalitarian partnership. Our relationship felt like a true team effort, with both of us supporting each other's growth and success. Jake's mother, Patricia, had always been polite but distant during our dating years. She lived in a small town in Montana where she'd raised Jake as a single mother after her husband died when Jake was 12. Patricia worked as a secretary at the local bank and had sacrificed a lot to put Jake through college. I understood and respected her devotion to her son, even if I sometimes felt like she viewed me as competition for his attention. The first real sign of trouble came during our engagement party 2 years ago. Patricia arrived wearing black, which I initially thought was just coincidental. But as the evening progressed, she made several comments that left me uncomfortable. "I hope Jake remembers where he comes from," she said pointedly while looking at me. "Some people change when they get successful, forget about the people who got them there." At the time, I brushed off these comments as wedding stress or perhaps concern about losing her son to marriage. Jake assured me that his mother just needed time to adjust and that she would come around once she got to know me better. I wanted to believe him, so I made extra efforts to connect with Patricia. I called her regularly, sent thoughtful gifts for holidays, and invited her to visit us in Seattle multiple times. Patricia would visit about twice a year, staying for a week each time. During these visits, she would often make subtle suggestions about how I could improve our home or how I might better support Jake's career. She would reorganize our kitchen while I was at work, explaining that this was how a proper home should be arranged. She would cook elaborate meals and then comment on how Jake deserved to come home to a home-cooked meal every day. These comments always came packaged with a smile and framed as helpful suggestions, making it difficult to object without seeming ungrateful or oversensitive. When I mentioned these interactions to Jake, he would dismiss them as his mother just trying to help or showing she cares. He couldn't see the underlying message that I wasn't measuring up to her standards of what a wife should be. The situation escalated significantly 8 months ago when I received an incredible job offer. A major tech company in California had been courting me for months, impressed by an innovative solar panel efficiency project I'd led at my current company. They were offering me a senior engineer position with a 40% salary increase, significant stock options, and the opportunity to lead my own research team. It was everything I'd worked toward since college: recognition for my skills, financial security, and the chance to make a real impact in renewable energy. I was over the moon about the opportunity. This wasn't just a job. It was validation that all my hard work, long hours, and dedication had paid off. The company wanted me specifically because of my expertise and leadership potential. It represented everything I'd dreamed about when I first decided to pursue engineering, despite people telling me it was too difficult for women or not a feminine career choice. When I told Jake about the offer, his initial reaction was supportive and excited. We spent hours discussing the logistics. He would need to find a new job in California, we would need to sell our house, and we'd be leaving behind our established life in Seattle. But Jake seemed genuinely enthusiastic about the adventure and proud of my accomplishment. We started researching neighborhoods in San Francisco, and Jake began updating his resume and reaching out to contacts in the California Aerospace industry. Everything changed when we called Patricia to share the news. I should have anticipated her reaction, but I was so caught up in my excitement that I didn't think through how she might respond. Jake put her on speakerphone so we could both talk to her, and I enthusiastically explained the job opportunity, the company's mission, and what it would mean for my career. The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long that we thought the call might have dropped. Finally, Patricia spoke, and her voice was ice cold. So let me understand this correctly, Sarah. You want to uproot Jake from his career, drag him across the country, and force him to start over just so you can chase some fantasy job? I was stunned. Patricia, it's not a fantasy job. It's a senior engineering position with a major company, and Jake is supportive of the move. We're making this decision together. Are you, Jake? Patricia asked pointedly, ignoring me completely. Are you really okay with your wife putting her ambitions ahead of your stability and future? Jake hesitated for just a moment, but it was long enough for me to feel a chill of concern. Mom, this is a great opportunity for Sarah, and I can find work in California. We're a team, and we support each other's careers. A team, Patricia repeated, her tone dripping with skepticism. Jake, honey, I need to speak with you privately. Can you call me back without Sarah there? After Jake hung up, I felt uneasy but tried to push away my concerns. Patricia had never been enthusiastic about me, but surely she wouldn't try to sabotage such an important career opportunity. I spent the rest of the evening researching schools and neighborhoods in California, imagining our new life there. Jake was on the phone with his mother for over 2 hours that night. When he came to bed, he seemed troubled but wouldn't elaborate on their conversation. Mom just needs time to process the news, he said. You know how she worries about big changes. Over the next few days, Jake became increasingly distant and seemed to be having frequent private phone conversations with his mother. I would walk into a room and he would quickly end his call, claiming it was just work stuff. His enthusiasm for the California move began to wane, and he started pointing out potential problems with the relocation that hadn't bothered him before. The cost of living in San Francisco is so much higher, he would say, and I'm not sure there are as many opportunities in aerospace there. Maybe we should think about this more carefully. I tried to address his concerns rationally, showing him salary comparisons and job market data, but he seemed to have already made up his mind. The supportive partner who had initially celebrated my success was being replaced by someone who questioned every aspect of the opportunity. The breaking point came 2 weeks after I'd received the job offer. I had been waiting for Jake to give me a definitive answer about whether he was truly on board with the move, as the company needed my response soon. That evening, Jake came home from work looking pale and stressed. We need to talk, he said, sitting down heavily on our couch. I've been thinking a lot about this California thing, and I don't think it's the right decision for us. My heart sank, but I tried to remain calm. What specifically concerns you? We've addressed the cost of living issue, and you've had several promising conversations with companies there. Jake avoided my eyes. It's not just about the logistics. It's about priorities and what's really important in a marriage. What do you mean? He took a deep breath, and I could tell he was reciting something he'd practiced. Sarah, we've been married for 3 years, and we've both been so focused on our careers that we haven't made time for the important things. Starting a family, building a real home together, creating stability. I stared at him in confusion. Jake, we've never talked about wanting to start a family right now, and we have built a home together. What are you talking about? Mom helped me realize that I've been selfish, letting you focus so much on work instead of encouraging you to think about what really matters for our future. There it was. Patricia's influence was finally out in the open. Let me focus on work? Jake, you don't let me do anything. I'm an adult woman making my own career decisions, just like you do. That's not what I meant, Jake said quickly. But maybe it's time for us to think about traditional roles and what's worked for generations. Mom pointed out that she was happiest when she was focused on raising me and supporting my dad's career. Maybe there's wisdom in that approach. I felt like I was talking to a stranger. Jake, your father died when you were 12. Your mother worked full-time to support you both. She wasn't a traditional stay-at-home wife. But she prioritized family first, Jake argued. And look how well I turned out because she made those sacrifices. I could barely comprehend what I was hearing. This was the same man who had encouraged me through difficult engineering courses, celebrated my promotions, and bragged about my accomplishments to his friends. Now he was suggesting I should abandon my career to follow some idealized version of traditional marriage that didn't even match his own family's reality. What exactly are you suggesting, Jake? He fidgeted with his hands, clearly uncomfortable but determined to push forward. I think you should turn down the California job. We should start trying for a baby, and you should consider stepping back from your career to focus on our family. The words hit me like a physical blow. Step back from my career? Jake, I've worked for 8 years to get to this point. This job offer represents everything I've been working toward. And I've been working toward things too, he said, finally meeting my eyes. I want to be able to provide for my family. I want a wife who's there to support me and create a warm home environment. I want children who have a mother who's present and focused on them, not distracted by work demands. Those things aren't mutually exclusive with having a career, I protested. Plenty of couples manage dual careers and families. We've never even discussed me being a stay-at-home mother. Maybe we should have discussed it sooner, Jake said. Mom thinks that's been part of our problem. We've been so caught up in this modern idea of equal careers that we haven't considered what might actually make us happier. I realized this conversation was really between me and Patricia, with Jake as her mouthpiece. When did you start agreeing with your mother about what should make me happy? She knows me better than anyone, Jake said defensively. And she's seen what works and what doesn't. All these career-focused women in the city, are they really happy? Are their marriages strong? I couldn't believe the words coming out of his mouth. Jake, I am a career-focused woman, and yes, I'm happy. Or at least I was until this conversation. We argued for hours that night, but it became clear that Jake had made up his mind. He wanted me to turn down the job offer, stay in Seattle, and begin transitioning to a more traditional role as a wife focused primarily on home and family. He framed it as what was best for us, and what would make our marriage stronger. I realized I had a choice to make, and it went far beyond just this job opportunity. I could give in to Jake and Patricia's vision for my life, or I could stand up for my own dreams and values. The decision wasn't easy, but deep down, I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I called the company in California and accepted their job offer. When I told Jake my decision, his reaction was swift and angry. "You're choosing your career over our marriage," he accused. "Mom warned me this might happen, but I didn't want to believe it." "I'm choosing myself over your mother's vision of what I should be," I replied. "There's a difference. If you take that job, you're doing it alone," Jake said coldly. "I won't be uprooted from my life just so you can chase some selfish dream." His words stung, but they also clarified something important for me. If Jake viewed my career success as selfish, if he saw supporting my ambitions as being uprooted rather than embarking on a shared adventure, then we had fundamentally different values about what marriage should be. "Then I guess I'm doing it alone," I said. The next few weeks were a blur of painful conversations, legal consultations, and logistical planning. Jake moved in with a friend, claiming he needed space to think, but he spent most of his time at his mother's house in Montana, being reinforced in his belief that I was making a terrible mistake. Patricia called me once during this time, ostensibly to work things out. But the conversation quickly revealed her true intentions. "Sarah, I know you're upset, but you need to think rationally about what you're doing," she began. "You're throwing away a good marriage for what? A job that might not even work out?" "Patricia, this isn't just about a job. It's about Jake's inability to support my dreams and ambitions." "Support?" She laughed harshly. "Honey, Jake supported you plenty. He let you work all these years, didn't pressure you to have children, split the housework. What more support do you want? I want a partner who celebrates my success instead of seeing it as a threat to our relationship." "Success?" Patricia's voice turned sharp. "Let me tell you about success, dear. Success is a strong marriage, a stable family, children who grow up with both parents present and committed. Success is not chasing after some corporate ladder while your husband feels neglected and unimportant." "Jake doesn't feel neglected," I protested. We both worked demanding jobs. We both supported each other's careers. Did you? Or were you so focused on proving you could compete with men that you forgot how to be a woman, how to be a wife? The conversation deteriorated from there, with Patricia making it clear that she viewed my career ambitions as selfish and destructive to proper family values. She accused me of emasculating her son, of prioritizing money and status over love and commitment, and of being too stubborn to accept guidance from someone with more life experience. Jake deserves a woman who will put him first, she concluded. If you can't do that, then you're right to leave. He'll find someone who appreciates what a good man he is. After that conversation, I understood that there was no middle ground to be found. Patricia had successfully convinced Jake that a good wife should prioritize her husband's comfort over her own aspirations, and Jake had chosen to accept that worldview rather than fight for the egalitarian partnership we had originally built together. I moved to California alone and started my new job with a mixture of excitement and heartbreak. The work was everything I had hoped for: challenging, innovative, and impactful. I was leading a team developing next-generation solar technology that could revolutionize renewable energy adoption. My colleagues were brilliant and supportive, and my boss made it clear that she valued my contributions and saw significant potential for my career growth. But coming home to an empty apartment every night was difficult. I missed the companionship of marriage, the shared daily experiences, and yes, I even missed Jake's good qualities, his sense of humor, his kindness to others, and the way he used to look at me with pride when I achieved something at work. 3. Months after I moved to California, Jake filed for divorce. The papers were delivered to my office, which felt like a particularly cruel touch. The grounds cited were irreconcilable differences, which I suppose was accurate, though it didn't capture the full story of how his mother had systematically undermined our marriage. Jake's lawyer tried to argue for alimony, claiming that I had abandoned the marriage by taking the job in California. Fortunately, I had an excellent attorney who pointed out that Jake had been perfectly capable of finding work in California and had chosen not to pursue the opportunities available to him. The divorce was finalized 6 months after I moved, with a clean split of assets and no ongoing financial obligations to each other. Throughout the divorce proceedings, I received several messages from mutual friends expressing surprise and confusion about our separation. Many of them had viewed us as a strong couple with shared values and goals. I didn't want to vilify Jake or air our private business, so I usually just said we had grown in different directions and wanted different things for our futures. But a few close friends pushed for more details, and when I explained the situation, their reactions were universally supportive. "I can't believe Jake let his mother sabotage your marriage like that," my friend Michelle said. "And I can't believe he wanted you to give up your career. That's so unlike the Jake I thought I knew." Wondered about that myself. Had Jake always harbored these traditional views about marriage and gender roles, or had Patricia really managed to change his fundamental beliefs? I came to realize that it probably didn't matter. Whether his views were original or influenced, he had chosen to prioritize his mother's approval over our partnership, and that choice revealed everything I needed to know about his character and our compatibility. The most challenging part of this entire experience wasn't losing Jake. It was realizing how many people in my life were quietly unsupportive of women's professional ambitions. When news of our divorce spread, I was surprised by some of the reactions I received. My own aunt called to express her disappointment in my choices. "Sarah, honey, good men are hard to find. Don't you think you could have made some compromises to save your marriage? Careers come and go, but family is forever." A former colleague from Seattle reached out to say he wasn't surprised by my divorce. "You were always pretty focused on work," he said. "Some guys find that intimidating. Maybe the next relationship you can find a better balance." These comments revealed an underlying assumption that my career focus was somehow excessive or inappropriate, that I should have been willing to sacrifice my professional ambitions to preserve my marriage. But notably, no one suggested that Jake should have compromised his career goals or made sacrifices to support my success. 6 months into my new life in California, I received an unexpected phone call from Jake. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hi, Sarah," he said, his voice uncertain. "I hope you don't mind me calling." "What do you need, Jake?" "I wanted to talk to you about something." I've been doing some thinking lately, and I realize I might have made a mistake. My heart started beating faster, but I tried to keep my voice neutral. What kind of mistake? About us, about the divorce, about everything, really. He paused. I've been miserable since you left. Work isn't going well, I'm not dating anyone, and I feel like I lost the best thing in my life over something stupid. It wasn't something stupid, Jake. It was a fundamental disagreement about who I should be and what our marriage should look like. I know, and I think I was wrong. Mom kept telling me that you were being selfish and that a good wife wouldn't make the kinds of demands you were making. But the truth is, you weren't making demands. You were just being yourself, the same person I fell in love with in college. I felt a mix of sadness and frustration. Jake, you can't blame this entirely on your mother. You made choices. You decided to prioritize her opinion over our partnership. You're right, he said quietly. I did make those choices, and they were wrong. I was scared, I think. Scared of moving somewhere new. Scared of you being more successful than me. Scared of disappointing. Mom, but I let that fear destroy something beautiful. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to try again. I want to support your career the way I should have from the beginning. I could still move to California. We could still make this work. I sat in silence for a long moment, considering his words. Part of me had dreamed of this conversation, had hoped that Jake would come to his senses and fight for our relationship. But now that it was happening, I realized something important had changed. Jake, I appreciate you calling and acknowledging your mistakes. That takes courage. But I don't think we can go back. Why not? If I'm willing to change, if I'm willing to move and support your career, why can't we try again? Because the damage goes deeper than just your mother's influence or your fear of change. You were willing to ask me to give up everything I'd worked for without considering what that would mean for me as a person. You saw my professional success as a threat to our relationship instead of something to celebrate. That reveals something fundamental about how you view women and marriage. But I'm telling you, I've changed my mind about all of that. Have you? Or are you just lonely and nostalgic for what we used to have? I took a breath. Jake, if we got back together tomorrow, what would happen the next time your mother disapproved of one of my choices? What would happen if I got another promotion that made me earn more than you? What would happen when we disagreed about having children or how to raise them? He was quiet for a long time. I don't know, he finally admitted. I do know, I said. You would revert to the same patterns, the same assumptions about what a wife should be and how a marriage should work. This wasn't just a momentary lapse in judgment, Jake. This was you showing me who you really are when pressured to choose between me and your mother's approval. So that's it? We can't even try? I think we both need to become better people before we could have a healthy relationship with anyone. You need to figure out how to set boundaries with your mother and develop your own values about marriage and partnership. And I need to heal from the experience of having someone I loved try to diminish my dreams. The conversation ended amicably, but with finality. Jake wished me well and said he hoped I found happiness in California. I genuinely wished the same for him, though I doubted he would find it as long as Patricia continued to have such influence over his life choices. A year. After moving to California, I'm thriving in ways I never expected. My career has exceeded even my optimistic projections. The solar efficiency project I'm leading has attracted national attention, and I've been invited to speak at conferences and advise government panels on renewable energy policy. I'm earning more money than I ever imagined possible, and building a professional reputation that opens doors I hadn't even known existed. But the personal growth has been even more significant. Living alone for the first time in my adult life forced me to confront some uncomfortable truths about myself. I realized that I had been so focused on being a good partner to Jake that I had lost touch with many of my own interests and friendships. I had fallen into the trap of defining myself primarily through my relationship, even while maintaining my professional identity. Now I've rediscovered hobbies I'd abandoned, like rock climbing and photography. I've made new friends through work and volunteer activities. I've traveled to places I'd always wanted to visit but never prioritized when I was splitting all decisions with a partner. I've learned to enjoy my own company and to create a life that feels authentically mine. Dating hasn't been a priority, but I've gone on a few dates with men who approach relationships very differently than Jake did. They ask about my work with genuine interest, celebrate my professional achievements, and seem to view my success as attractive rather than threatening. These interactions have shown me what it feels like to be with someone who truly sees me as an equal partner. The most surprising development has been my relationship with Patricia. 6 months after my divorce from Jake, she called me out of the blue. I almost didn't answer, expecting another lecture about my failures as a wife, but something made me pick up. "Sarah," she said, her voice different than I'd ever heard it before. "I owe you an apology." I was so surprised I couldn't respond immediately. "I've been watching Jake these past months," she continued, "and I realize I may have given him some very poor advice about marriage and what he should expect from a partner. Patricia, you don't need to—" "Yes, I do need to," she interrupted. "I spent so many years struggling as a single mother that I developed some very fixed ideas about what makes a marriage work. I thought if Jake found a woman who would focus entirely on supporting him, he would never face the kind of loss and struggle I experienced when his father died." She paused, and I could hear her taking a shaky breath. But I was wrong. I was trying to protect Jake from disappointment by encouraging him to marry someone who would never challenge him or pursue her own dreams. Instead, I helped him lose a wonderful woman who loved him and could have been a true partner. "I appreciate you saying that," I said carefully. "Jake is miserable," she admitted. "He talks about you constantly, regrets his choices, and I can see that he's not going to recover from losing you. And it's my fault. I poisoned his mind against everything that made you special." I felt a surge of anger mixed with sadness. "Patricia, Jake is an adult. He chose to listen to your advice, but he didn't have to. He could have supported my career and our partnership regardless of what you thought." "You're right," she said, "but I made it very difficult for him. I constantly questioned his decisions, made him feel guilty for not being more traditional, and convinced him that your success somehow diminished his value as a husband." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I've been thinking about my own life and what I really want for Jake. I want him to be happy, and he was happy with you. You brought out the best in him, his intelligence, his humor, his kindness. Since you left, he's become bitter and closed off. I realize now that I was trying to protect him from the wrong things." We talked for over an hour, and Patricia shared stories about her marriage that she'd never told before. Her husband hadn't been the traditional provider she'd always described to Jake. They had been partners who supported each other's goals and shared household responsibilities. She had worked not just out of necessity after he died, but because she genuinely enjoyed her career and felt fulfilled by contributing to their family's financial stability. "I created a mythology about my marriage that wasn't true," Patricia admitted. "I convinced myself and Jake that traditional gender roles were what made us happy, when the reality was that we succeeded because we were a team. I think I was afraid that if Jake had a truly equal partnership like I did, he might face the same devastating loss I experienced. But trying to protect him from that possibility, I helped him lose something real and good." This conversation didn't change anything about my divorce from Jake, but it did give me some closure and understanding. Patricia's interference in our marriage had come from a place of genuine concern for her son, even if that concern was misguided and destructive. I couldn't forgive the damage she had caused, but I could understand her motivations. Today, as I write this story, I'm preparing for another major career milestone. I've been offered a position as Director of Renewable Energy Research at a prestigious university, a role that would allow me to influence the next generation of engineers while continuing to work on cutting-edge technology. It's another dream, job, and this time I don't have to consider anyone else's career or comfort level in making my decision. I think about Jake sometimes and wonder if he's found happiness. Through mutual friends, I've heard that he's still living in Seattle, still working at the same job, and still struggling with dating. Part of me feels sad for him, remembering the ambitious, supportive man I fell in love with in college. But I also feel grateful that our marriage ended when it did, before I compromised away more of myself in an attempt to fit into someone else's vision of what I should be. The experience taught me that love isn't always enough to sustain a relationship. You also need shared values, mutual respect, and a genuine commitment to supporting each other's growth and happiness. When someone asks you to become smaller to make them more comfortable, that's not love, that's control. I've learned to trust my instincts about what I want from life and not to let others convince me that my ambitions are selfish or inappropriate. I've learned that the right person will celebrate your success, not ask you to dim your light. And I've learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away from a relationship that requires you to betray yourself. If you're facing pressure to give up your dreams for someone else's comfort, I hope my story gives you courage to stand up for yourself. Whether it's a romantic partner, family member, or friend who's asking you to compromise your authentic self, remember that you deserve relationships that encourage your growth, not limit it. Your dreams matter. Your ambitions are valid. And anyone who truly loves you will want to see you thrive, even if it means making their own adjustments to support your success. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Have you ever faced pressure to give up something important to you for the sake of a relationship? How did you handle family members who didn't support your career goals? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life experiences about standing up for yourself and pursuing your dreams.